Hello and welcome to today's live stream. Let me just make sure everything's looking good. Okay, I don't know if I'll be able to see the chat. Last time I was having an issue with the chat, but hopefully everything will be good for this one. Let me actually bring up OBS just so. Make sure I'm in focus. Okay, so I'm working on this maquette or small design that'll be a, hopefully it'll become a larger figure sculpture in stone. That's the goal for this design. Kind of just working on texturing now and finishing the details. I'll try to keep my eyes out if there's any comments or questions or anything. Otherwise, I'll just be sculpting. Yesterday was a day I was just working in the studio space that I'm sitting in right now. This is the second live stream from the space. And I was mostly doing the roof section up here at the top, trying to insulate that top section and put in some what do you call it? I guess just some boards. That'll be the roof section. Maybe I'll paint it eventually, hopefully, you know, when I get to that section. And having the roof insulated will hopefully help just a little bit, because it's going to be getting pretty warm. It's cold now, so it snowed outside and there's snow melting off the roof. If you can sometimes hear things dropping off the roof, that's the snow. It says, hi, hello, welcome to the live stream. And so I was doing that all day, pretty much all day yesterday. I cut the boards and then brought them upstairs, and previously I had put the insulation that had kind of deteriorated in the walls into plastic bags, and then I put those bags up top with some cardboard and some other stuff to kind of separate the attic ceiling area from down here. And I'd like to, we have some bats that are in the house that are in our attic, but I'd rather have the bats out here in the attic of the studio space than at home. So maybe we'll try to discourage them from being in the attic, and then hopefully they can come and be in the roof up here, because bats are good for getting rid of bugs and things. But I don't want them in the attic of our house. Yay, I'm kind of early. Yeah, for this live stream. Just started it. So we'll see how it goes. I'm using just the computer from the laptop for the face cam type thing. I think it looks fine. Instead of using, I had, the laptop and 2 other cameras. I can just use 1 camera in the laptop. That makes it a little bit more convenient. Feel like it's getting just a little bit bright, so I'm just going to bring that brightness down on this camera. Oh, I think what art subject do you think barely gets talked about enough? I think the fat pads of the face, something I've hardly heard anybody take a lot of time and develop, but I think that they're more important than the muscles of the face. Sometimes I'll see people going through the muscles of the face, but if I was going to choose one thing that I thought was under discussed but very important, especially for anybody interested in the figure or the portrait, I think understanding the fat pads of the face is a really crucial thing to be able to represent the portrait in a realistic way. So that's probably the thing I would think should be talked about more, but isn't talked about very much. What are some other things that are not talked about? I guess like when you're getting an art degree, just talking about the business side of it, that if you're an artist, then you're basically a small business. You're your own business, your own brand. And so I think it should be required for any art degree to take some marketing classes, some, figure out where you're gonna sell things. And I think if people, or if universities were doing that, then people would find more success as artists. Because I think like when somebody gets an art degree, only like 5% of them actually end up doing something art related or that's related to the degree for their income. And so that's anyway, it's a really low percentage. I don't know what it is exactly, and it might have changed, but but it would definitely help if artists understood that they have to treat their artwork like a business and figure out how to market, how to sell, how to communicate with galleries and things like that. And I say that as somebody that I wouldn't consider myself particularly knowledgeable in any of those things, but I recognize that those are important things if you're going to be successful. But it's not really, I guess that's not really art related. It's a little bit different. Let me go check on the, there's a fire. Well, I have the fire in the fireplace downstairs, but it's getting kind of smoky. Let me make sure everything's okay down there. Be right back. Yeah, I don't know what happened, but there's just a lot of smoke. I want to make sure that the barn isn't on fire. That would be unfortunate. Okay, let's see. Maybe I'll try to work some of these details of the face. Trying to make sure that I'm in focus. As I'm working on this. I mean, making art as living is art related somewhat. Yeah, but it's not something that people automatically think of when it comes to studying art. But if you're going to, make a living as an artist, it's definitely an important thing to consider. Yeah, the beard sure makes a difference on the portrait. In fact, I think I'm gonna add just a little bit more mass under the beard. We'll make it a little bit more of a longer beard. What I think artists should do is read more books on how to be a better salesman. Yeah, that's a good suggestion. Books are great. Yeah, great suggestion for anybody interested in art or being your own boss or starting a business. One of my favorite books is The Ultimate Sales Machine by Chet Holmes. That's kind of a business entrepreneurial type book, but it's just a good has good sound business and sales principles. So if you're interested in that side of things, it's a book I recommend, The Ultimate Sales Machine by Chet Holmes. I should read it again. He talks about all kinds of things in that book. One of the things that he mentions is like that you probably, he starts the book saying, you probably heard all these things, and when I explain them to you, you will 100% know that they'll improve your business. But the question is, do you have the pig-headed determination to actually do the things and stick to it? But isn't that true with so many things? We know what we should be doing. We know what would make things better, but we have a hard time forcing ourselves to do those things. I know I'm that way. And if you guys are interested in sculpting, then I definitely recommend checking out my online sculpting courses. There's one on the figure sculpting fundamentals is a great place to start. There's one on the portrait and one on the hands. And there's an in-person sculpting workshop coming up in June if you can make it, if you can swing the travel and the cost of the workshop. I'm really excited for it. There's something about being in person, working with other artists and creating something together in the same space. It's just a really great experience. So if it's something that you can invest in and you're serious about sculpting, about becoming a proficient sculptor of the human figure, then I definitely think it would be worthwhile to try to make that trip and join that workshop. Let's see, I'm going to pull some. What have I gotten from the book I was talking about? Let's see, what are some of the things that I like? His tips on, time management that are really good. Just, what to do during meetings with a team, if you have a team of people that you're working with, how to make those productive and track your progress, and then put together the things that you talk about into one resource, one binder, so that when new people come into the business, then you can have one place where there's answers to all the questions that just come up as in the course of doing business, and that way you as the boss don't have to be like answering the same questions over and over again repeatedly. I also really like his marketing. He talks about how to successfully get people's attention and kind of basic marketing techniques. He talks about it more in the sense of traditional, almost like newspaper and magazine ads, because this is a little bit, this is before a lot of the internet stuff took over, but the principles are the same principles. It's just you have to apply it to different platforms, and the principles of being able to get attention. If you can get people's attention, that's what's really valuable right now in the market is attention, people's attention spans. What else does it? Yeah, I guess I need to go over it, and maybe I could put together I've thought about putting together a little mini course just on that book but geared kind of towards artists, because it's just such a good overall business book. So just taking the principles from it and kind of applying it to sculptors could be a cool thing. But yeah, I need to read it again. It's something that I've read several times, but with really good books that are complex and have a lot of good information, you usually have to read them several times. People talk about reading a bunch of books a year, but sometimes you need to just read the same book over and over until you start remembering and applying the principles that are in it. Sounds like a good idea. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if that ends up happening. I've got too many. I want to do a mini course on the écorché. I want to do one on stone sculpting. I'll try to record as much as I can of the stone sculpting process with the workshop I have coming up, and then maybe put together a master demo of that. Maybe with this sculpture. Maybe from working on this sculpture or this maquette. Got some things on my to-do list. Yeah, there's a bunch on the to-do list. So many things. And then, I'm trying to fix up the studio space and get it ready for things. Sometimes I wish I could clone myself so I could get more done. Yeah, I think a lot of people feel that way, though. I don't know. Maybe if I clone myself, I would just have two people doing about the same. Two of me, because then I would think, oh, I don't have to do as much because the other me can do it, and then the other me would be thinking the same thing. And we would just try to get the other one to do the things we don't like to do. Let's see, gotta figure out what's happening with the pelvis area. Try to keep the symmetry and understand what's happening with the muscles in this area. The pelvis and the hips are kind of tricky on men and women. There's just a lot of muscles and a lot of things going on in those areas. Last time you gave a tip about human anatomy. It is great to help to me in making sculpture. I'm able to sculpt it more precisely. Thank you so much. Oh, hey, I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that is helpful. That's what I try to do, is give helpful tips. And if you have any other specific questions on anything, then I hope you'll ask those, and I'll see if I can help. feel like the rib cage can be pushed out just a little bit more on this side. I'm just going to take some clay and fill it out over there. Now I'm texturing, but I'm also trying to consider the forms, the silhouette, especially from this front view. I want this to be very stretched on this side to be a little bit more crunched, a little bit more compressed. And that way I can kind of give the sense of the way the figure is twisting. Let's see. How to make the textures of any particular thing, such as stone or wood, look as real as possible. So, to get a realistic texture, a lot of it is not actually the texture itself. So, a lot of it is like I was talking about, I think it might have been you that was asking, but the underlying forms, the primary forms, getting those accurate, the structure underneath that you're building up, and then getting the secondary forms really honed in. And so that's like the muscles and the transition between those secondary forms. So really paying attention to like where the transition between forms is a little bit sharper. So for example, like here on the chest, you know, this area right here in the corner where the chest is kind of coming down right there, that corner is going to be a little bit sharper. It's going to be a little bit more of an abrupt transition right here, but then it smooths out as it comes this way. And then here the transition is very soft. And the reason that that's so important when it comes to texture is because when you're doing the texture, all of those things should already be in place. And a mistake that I feel like I see a lot in student work is they try to make up for mistakes in anatomy or mistakes in structure by hyper focusing on the texture. But if you have the forms, those primary and secondary forms accurately established and accurately in place, then you almost don't even need a texture, a realistic texture like that's exactly true to how our skin looks if you look at it in like a microscope or something. If you just smooth it out, then the texture will start to feel soft. It'll start to feel organic and accurate because the underlying forms are accurate. And so texture is superficial. Superficial, like the word superficial means like surface level. Superficie in Spanish. Superficie is like the surface. So superficial, texture is superficial. It's It's the surface level stuff, literally. It's just on the surface. And if you don't have depth to your work in the sense of accurate forms, then you can't fix those problems with texture. I've seen some people that try to get like a super hyper realistic texture in stone. I think it looks I don't think it looks that great. I prefer like the ancient sculptors, and they would kind of smooth out the texture. They would use some sort of compound or sandpaper or whatever they used back then. Maybe it was like powders, and then they would smooth out the texture. The texture would be smooth, but the forms were so well developed and so I don't want to say accurate, because a lot of the times they were exaggerating things like anatomy and stuff, so they might not have been accurate, but they were very well thought out, well designed, and because of that, they just worked. And the texture, even though it was just smooth, it was just like a smooth, polished texture. The sculptures feel so lifelike because the forms, the secondary forms, the skin, the folds, the anatomy was all treated in an accurate way. Sir, please make videos on carving, basics of carving, how we can carve in relief or in the round with a block of wood. Yeah, I'd like to do maybe, well, I was thinking like stone sculpting, but maybe it'll be subtractive sculpture in general, that's like stone, wood, anything where you're sculpting by removing material. So I'd like to do like a master demo of that and have it be another mini course. So if I do that, then I'll be sure to let you guys know, and probably the video lessons will go up on the Proco 3D channel, but I'll let you guys know here as well, because I do have a two-week workshop where I'll be sculpting stone, and hopefully I'll be able to film a lot of that process, or I'll try to film a lot of that process so that you guys can see and then turn that into like a master demo or a mini course. And then with all those, I always have some free lessons, so there'll definitely be some free stuff as well. Let's see, I feel like these ribs are not blending as much as I'd like them to. And then they feel a little bit fake when they're too symmetrical and not blending in an accurate way, so I need to maybe change things up. Let me try. I'm going to try adding some clay to blend this front part of the rib cage. Do you ever dabble in sculpting fantasy or sci-fi? I haven't too much, but I'd like to maybe get into doing like my own version of characters from literature or from sci-fi or from other things where they just give a description in a book and then try to like my own interpretation of that in sculpture. I think that would be a fun series to take characters as they're described in books or and then try to sculpt them and then compare that with like the movie version of the characters if it's something that's been turned into a movie. I was thinking about doing that with the Harry Potter characters. One that got me that I didn't feel like they did a very good job with was Mad Eye Moody, the way he's described in the book and the way he looks in the Harry Potter franchise. I was like, oh, that would be fun to do my own interpretation of that. So that might be something that would be fun. And just as a fun piece of content to make. When we make portraits, should we make the hair and the eye at first or leave it for the end? Well, I'd say like you want to get the placement and structure of the head there first. But sometimes if you're trying to capture a likeness of a person, sculpting the mass of the hair and the placement of the eyes, even if you don't get into the details, that can be really helpful. You don't want to wait till the very end to do the eyes, but just kind of develop it along with the rest of the forms. So as I'm going through and I'm texturing the body, then I'm also coming and texturing the beard and the eye and working on the facial features and details. And that's probably how I would recommend doing it. Just develop it with everything else. Don't put it off. That's a great idea. I'd love to see that, especially with your foundation in figure sculpting. Yeah, it could be a fun thing, and is just a way to create some content to something that's entertaining. Well, I don't know, I never understand why some videos take off. Just talking about my own videos, why some take off and some don't do as well. I did the recent video that I did. I thought I did a really good job, and it's performing okay. But it's just you never know. That was a commissioned video and sculpture project from a company that makes sculpting wax. And I thought I did a good job on the video, but, well, I guess we'll see. I guess it's too early. I just released that this week, so it's too early to know if it's going to take off or not. But at first, it was not performing very well. Then I changed the thumbnail and the title, and seems to be doing better now. So maybe it was just those things. But I don't know. I don't get YouTube. I don't get it. I think you killed it with the video, but I think the challenge is that wax sculpting is a niche, and already a niche category. More sculpture stuff I see on YouTube is polymer clay stuff, because that's what crafts like to do. YouTube doesn't have tons of dedicated sculptors, I think. Yeah, sculpture is a niche, but even, with any niche, if people do a really good job of creating a piece of content around that niche, like it'll go viral, even if the people aren't interested in that particular hobby or something. Like I see there are other people that do sculpture related stuff, but they're talented, they're talented entertainers and YouTubers, and so they do a better job of maybe making it entertaining and engaging. And then, even though it's not everybody that watches it, in fact, a very small percentage of the people that watch it are gonna do it themselves, but they just are like, oh, that's just a cool thing that I want to see the process of creating it. And I guess I just need to work on that. I guess it's a skill like any other, but it is discouraging when you see people create something or like a video or a short or something, and it's like you're like, oh, I could do something better than that. But then even when you do something, you create something that you feel is better, then it's not always treated as better by the general public, which is, the case with many things. If you look at, some of the fine art stuff that sells, you're like, oh, you got to be kidding me. But yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, I thought it was a fun video project. And that one was kind of like what I was talking about. That one was of Samson, so that was a Bible character that I did an interpretation of the Samson's final prayer, and did a sculpture of that, which was really fun to do. And absolutely, I feel that. Yeah, it's just I guess it's just a skill like anything else. You just got to build up that skill, see what works. I guess Mr. Beast is a great example of that, where he was just obsessed with YouTube, like what makes an entertaining, watchable, viral video, and he just obsessed about that for 10 years before he became the biggest YouTuber. But he was just absolutely dedicated to his craft, even when it wasn't paying anything. He just didn't give up until he figured it out. But at the same time, I know you can't just copy. Like, I think it would be disingenuous if I tried to do a video copying exactly Mr. Beast's style. It's just not who I am. So, that would come across, and that's something that people also pay attention to when they're watching. If they can feel like, oh, this kind of feels like fake, or this is like what everybody's trying to do, the loud, like YouTube voice that I find kind of obnoxious, depending on the person. I mean, Mr. Beast's videos, I don't know if he always, but you know the voice, where it's kind of like you're yelling at the camera. I just wouldn't feel comfortable doing that. I guess maybe I would, as like a joke or something. Maybe that's something else I need to do, like introduce more humor into the videos. But I don't know, I guess it's something that feel like I've almost gotten worse, because at the first, when I was doing the Proco stuff, you know, the Proco courses, I'd try to write in jokes into the videos and stuff, but I do that less and less. I don't know why. But I haven't put that effort into, because, you know, writing a good joke, having a punchline in a video is fun. And I actually did a stand-up comedy routine for like a talent show at the high school when I was in high school. It was Mr. MC, Mr. Mountain Crest, and I did stand-up for that one. And I just took parts of different routines. I didn't write everything. I did put some of my own stuff on it, but it was just kind of, you know, it's a high school talent show. It's not like the comedians are gonna come and be like, "Hey, that's my joke." But it was very nerve-wracking at first, but then once you get the first laugh from the audience, I don't know. I guess you can only relate to this if you've kind of been in that situation. But it's very high pressure. You know, people are there, they want to laugh, and when you get that first laugh, and if you really get the audience engaged and laughing, like, it is such an emotional high. It's like when I did that, I was like, oh, this is why people would do comedy, because for this feeling right here, when everybody's laughing, there's like an energy to it that's almost, it's just unlike anything, any other experience, and you can't really duplicate that. But I guess if you've been to like a comedy club or something, you kind of feel a little bit of that. You're laughing with other people, and especially if the comedian's talented and has good jokes and good timing, then you really, you know, it's fun to be there. It's fun to participate. But as the comedian, it's just like, that's just like magnified, because it's like you're the one, you know, making these people laugh and creating such a reaction in the audience. But then, you know, it can go the other way. If you have a horrible experience or something, then that can be like emotionally scarring. If you try to be funny and you're just not, and there's that awkward silence. What material would you suggest for quick sculpture studies, 20-minute during a live figure drawing session, armature only or wax? I'm new to sculpting, but I'm curious on this craft. I would get a small wire armature, probably only about this tall for the whole figure. So maybe, you know, as tall as your hand or around that size. And then I would get some, I like this. This is Chavant medium NSP clay. Some oil wax-based clay that is not too soft, because when you're working small, you want something that has a little bit of stiffness to it, but it's not so hard that it makes it difficult to break off pieces, because you're working fast. So you have to be able to move things around and break off pieces and establish the mass somewhat quickly. So a medium hard is what I like, and I've done several gesture studies with this type of clay. This is Chavant medium mixed with a little bit of hard clay. And then you could also use a polymer clay or something if that's what you like working with, but make sure that you've kneaded the clay ahead of time so that it's workable, malleable, and so that you can just jump right in once the model is posed, because if you only have 20 minutes, that is not a lot of time. You might even start by establishing the primary forms, like the pelvis, the rib cage, the head, and like a little bit of clay connecting those, so that you can just kind of change it to where the pose is, and then have some of the mass already established as you start to put in the details. But 20 minutes is not a lot of time. I'd say like an hour is like a figure study, an hour is like a quick figure study in sculpture. But yeah, maybe I'll do an example or something. Maybe I'll try to show you guys, because I don't know if I'll do it today, but I do have a figure sculpting group, or a figure or an artist's group. I'm interested in figure sculpting, but it's basically any type of art. It's probably a similar situation in what you're talking about, where a lot of people are drawing, some people are painting, and you want to be sculpting. And so I'll be doing that later today, and we'll probably do some like quick gestures, like 2 to 3 minute poses, and then one longer pose. And it can be really fun, those quick gestures. For how many years are you into sculpting, sir? I've been doing this like 10, I guess coming up on 10 years of sculpting since college. I'm not quite 10 years out of college, but I guess like 8 years is probably when I've tried to take it more seriously and really master the skill. And I wouldn't consider myself master. I'd say I'm still learning. But around 10 years. But with sculpting, it's something that it's one of those skills that you don't just learn it, you keep trying to improve if you're a good sculptor. And you try to make each sculpture a little bit better than your last. As far as materials, back to the previous question on if you're doing a quick gesture study from a live model session, I also really like sculpting waxes, so maybe getting like actually the previous video that I did on the channel, the one where I'm sculpting, it's how to sculpt wax. If you did that type of wax or a similar type of wax on a wire armature, that can be a really good way to build up the figure quickly. I do like to have an armature because then it establishes the proportions and you don't have to figure those out as you're going, which can take a lot of time to like push and pull the proportions until they feel right. So if you start with a wire armature that already has the proportions in place, then that just it can save you a lot of time. So that's what I would recommend doing. Have a wire armature. Hello, that sculpture looks amazing. Thank you. Appreciate it. Fantastic job, somebody says. Thank you. I appreciate that. I watch your YouTube channel that goes to all 50 states and recommends which ones to move to and not. Or I watched a YouTube channel that recommends which states to move to. He says that every part of Iowa would be good to move to. Yeah, I really like Iowa. If you work online and you have kind of that income online or remote or something, and you can move anywhere you want, which was kind of our situation, then Iowa has some of the best deals. At least, well, we looked all over, but Iowa has some really good deals. It's pretty friendly to homeschooling, which is what we do, and that was important to us. It's a conservative-leaning, Republican-leaning state, which was also important. The property taxes aren't crazy, though they're trying to raise them. I need to go speak at the thing to try to discourage that. But you know, as far as compared to other states, it's really great. It's a great place to move to. I like it. I don't know if I like it as much as Utah. I really liked Utah, but Utah is like 4 times as expensive when it comes to real estate, because most of the state of Utah is federal land. So like the only places where people can build are like, you know, 1/3 of the state. So that makes land really expensive, makes building really expensive. So until they change that, Utah is probably not going to be affordable anytime soon. But if you have a lot of money, I really like Utah. Utah has some of the best performance when it comes to like low poverty rates, low homelessness. Actually, I don't know about the homelessness because of Salt Lake. Salt Lake's kind of has a lot of those blue policies that encourage that. But yeah, I like Iowa. A lot of pigs, a lot of farms. I don't know if I could have. Well, I wouldn't have been able to find Iowa on a map before I moved here, just because it's not one of those states where it's talked about or it's very popular. And I'm not good at geography. Maybe that's more of why I couldn't. But you know, after being here and after getting a good deal on a starter home that we're fixing up, and you know, a giant studio space. So this whole space came with the house, and it was, you know, it was under $100,000 for the house, and it had like 5 or 6 outbuildings. A lot of them need work, but you know, the structure of them, and if I can fix those up, then I'll be able to add a lot of value to the property, and if I do end up selling, hopefully I'll be able to make a decent profit. So yeah, if you need a starter home and everywhere is too expensive, and if you can move to you know, there's not a lot of jobs is the thing in this small town in Iowa. I don't know, maybe more in Des Moines or other places, but in the small towns, there's not a lot of options when it comes to work. But if you have some income online or from a remote job, I think it's a great opportunity. That's why I moved here. I agree, very important. I don't know what that was referring to. I guess I should be quicker when I read the comments. Buddy, you astound me. Well, I can't wait to one day take your class in person. Yeah, I hope some people will be able to. There's 9 spots left for the in-person workshop in June. So if you can take that one, I know it's a big thing. It's like, well, it's just under $500 for the workshop, and then on top of that, if you're I mean, there's options for camping, but then you also have to figure out meals and other stuff. So it's not. I understand that coming to an in-person workshop is not the easiest thing. That's why I love teaching online, because people can learn from their home, you know, from anywhere in the world, and I can teach thousands and tens of thousands, or however many people want to learn. I can teach those people online. But there is something about being in person that's just a superior experience. It's just more, what would you say? It's just more enjoyable. Like it just a faster learning experience, and really condensed, because you can get that direct, immediate feedback, and you tend to remember it more, you know, as you go back and you're working again from home or your home studio or something. You'll remember the things that we talked about in the workshop more than if you just watched a video on the subject. And you know, I can see your work, and you can see mine, and you can kind of see the sculpting process and be there. And having a live model also really beneficial, working from the figure from life. So I definitely recommend it for anybody that can make it. I know it's a huge sacrifice. It's like well, I guess it's not quite like a semester or a class, a college class. It's not quite that expensive, but it is expensive, and travel and everything, and depending on how far you are, which most people probably are a little ways away, it can get expensive. But yeah, I'm really excited for it. I'm excited to meet those of you that can make it, and hopefully it'll just be the first of many similar workshops. Maybe I'll even travel for some in the future, maybe go to California or New York, you know, to have a bigger audience of people that can attend those workshops, where there's more, you know, condensed people. Hey, Rachel. Food's ready? Okay, I'm coming. Okay, well that is the lunch bell, so I got to go for that. Somebody says LOL when you're listing, when you were listing like homeschooling. Yeah, well, yeah, we homeschool, so having a state that's friendly to that is important. Okay, well, stay creative, stay productive. Hopefully I'll see you guys in another video. Check out the online sculpting courses if you'd like to learn how to do this kind of stuff. And yeah, stay creative. I'll see you around.